Hello and welcome to my channel. Do you like gear? I'm Dan Spoon and this is the Eastwood Classic 4 bass. This is a modern take on classic tones and looks at a very reasonable price. With the street price of $649, you're getting a lot of style and a lot of bang for your buck. But you also get access to 19 frets by the time you get to the heel of the bass, which is kind of unusual for any bass guitar. Like a Fender P bass, you'll get to about the 15th fret, so right here. One thing I noticed during band practice was that I started playing songs at the wrong spot because I was counting frets wrong, so that was kind of funny. But speaking of the neck, I wanted to show that this bass has these super cool shark tooth fret markers. It also has binding on the neck. Okay, so moving on to the humbuckers. It has Eastwood retro humbuckers, which in my opinion look sort of like the old Gretsch Filtertron pickups. I think these things have a lot of punch, kind of like a boxing glove. Don't think punchy like modern basses that are all trebly and, you know, slap and pop crazy. These are more like an old school boxer kind of punchiness to them. Now moving on to the neck, it has a standard truss rod. Here's the truss rod cover. It uses an Allen key to make adjustments, so pretty standard there. These go-to style compact tuners, I think they may be some other brand. They feel a little bit cheap. They're probably the first thing that I would upgrade. Moving on to the bridge. It has a wooden floating bridge and a trapeze tail. One thing you want to make sure is that when you're changing the strings on a bass like this, you do one string at a time. This bridge isn't glued down, it's just floating in place, and it'll move if you take off all of the strings, which will change intonation and require you to do a full setup. So best practice is to change one string at a time, or if you break a string, make sure to change it right away so that you don't have the bridge start slipping out of place. Something interesting about the knob configuration is that the knob at the front controls the volume for the neck pickup. The volume closer to the back by the F-hole controls the bridge pickup. So, and then this third knob is the tone. So it's kind of strange that these are separated so far, but it makes sense once you get used to it. It's got a three-way selector switch, so down is going to be your bridge pickup, middle is both pickups, and up is your neck pickup. Eastwood describes this bass as having great balance because of its short scale and semi-hollow body. But I think that if you're at band practice and you start messing around with your phone, you're going to lose your bass. So I'm not sure about the balance. It doesn't feel awkward or anything, but you do have to keep your hand on the neck, otherwise it drops. One thing that's specific to my bass that I think is important to share with you guys is when I received it, it was in almost brand new condition. There were still pieces of protective plastic over pickups, and there was plastic for the bridge, and tuners have the protective plastic here still. It leads me to believe that whoever had this bass didn't really like it. When I plugged it in, I didn't really like the tone either. That's because the low E sounded very thin and lower in volume than the other strings. The D string sounded the loudest, and it sounded pretty honky and barky. Not in a good way, in a bad way. So the first thing I did was adjust the bridge pickup so that it sounded even where the E string is even with the G string at the bottom. And then I matched up the volumes of the two pickups so that they were about the same, because you really don't want your neck pickup to end up louder or lower in volume than your bridge pickup, because if you're switching between settings, you'll end up not being able to use one of the pickups because it'll jump up in volume. That seems kind of pointless. Another thing I wanted to point out is that it these pickups are pretty low output compared to other basses that I own. So you really have to crank up the gain on your preamp, and it might be even ideal to put a compressor on the front end of your signal chain. So now that I've described how it sounds, let's actually hear how it sounds. I'm going to plug directly into my DAW and use the software Amplitude to run it through an Ampeg SVT plugin, amp emulator. I'll show a few different settings, but that's what I'll be using. Just like any instrument, this bass isn't for everyone. But if you're into stuff like rockabilly, outlaw country, maybe indie rock, and old cars, then this is probably exactly what you're looking for. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you liked the video, and tell me what you thought in the comments below.